It started with a jar of peanut butter and ended with fire, blood, and a family torn apart. This isn't a ghost story. It's a true account of a house that didn't just haunt, it hunted. And the terrifying part, it was caught on camera. Watch until the very end, because the final moments might just change how you see your own home. In 2006, a woman named Susan Lewis moved into what she believed would be her forever home in Moreno Valley, California. With her daughter Jamie Lewis beside her and the California sun pouring warmth into the quaint suburban home, everything felt serene, peaceful, perfect. The place was small but cozy, their little sanctuary, as she liked to call it. Shortly after the move, Susan's boyfriend, Matthew Thompson, joined them. His daughter, Marie Thompson, who was about Jamie's age, also began spending more time at the house. They were a picture of a blended family. Laughter echoed from the backyard pool. The girls giggled over music and shared stories, and evenings were filled with warm dinners and soft lights. But perfection is fragile, and all it took was a jar of peanut butter to crack the illusion. It was an ordinary summer afternoon. Susan had left Matt and the girls splashing around in the pool to prepare lunch. She walked into the kitchen and saw something that stopped her cold. A jar of peanut butter lay on its side on the counter, its lid missing, the contents somehow liquefied and oozing onto the floor. The room wasn't hot enough to melt peanut butter. It didn't make sense. She called Jamie and Marie, demanding to know who had done it. Both denied it. She figured one of them must be lying, but rather than ruin the day, she chalked it up to mischief or carelessness and cleaned it up. That should have been the end of it. But when the sun dipped and they came back inside, the house was altered. Cans from the pantry were stacked neatly on each stair step leading upstairs. Shampoo bottles balanced in towers in the bathroom. Hairbrushes were arranged in pentagrams. Stuffed animals had been crammed into the microwave. Cleaning supplies were organized by height across the kitchen floor. Ketchup and shampoo had been splattered on the walls in sticky, colorful smears. And it wasn't just weird. It was wrong, violently out of place. Their sanctuary was now foreign alien, and yet no signs of forced entry, no shattered windows or jimmied locks. Matt Thompson's eyes narrowed. He was sure Jamie had done it. Susan was just as certain it was Marie. Both girls denied everything. The rift between Susan and Matt deepened, not just emotionally, but philosophically. Where Matt saw lies, Susan saw something she couldn't explain. Yet, both refused to take it to the police. It was easier to pretend it wasn't happening. A week later, something happened that neither girl could explain away. Jamie had just placed her coffee beside Marie, who was focused on her homework. Jamie stepped out briefly, and when she returned, the coffee had been thrown across the bed, soaking the sheets. Marie was baffled. Jamie was livid. The tension escalated. Jamie grabbed a bleach bottle, planning to clean the mess, but when she turned to grab it, the cap was already off, and the bleach was pouring all over her clothes. Marie hadn't moved. Jamie had seen her the whole time. It wasn't Marie, but someone or something had done it. Susan rushed in at the sound of screaming. The girls couldn't explain what had just occurred. Then, as if to emphasize the unseen presence, a picture fell off the wall behind them. Then another. Susan's breath caught. They ran. For the first time, the idea that the house might be haunted was spoken aloud. When they returned home, the house had again been vandalized. This time worse than before. Cans on the stairs. Microwave stuffed. The fridge emptied. Walls streaked with sauces and soap. And no one had been inside. Matt, still skeptical, accused Susan and the girls of staging it. But his voice rang hollow now. Something was wrong in that house, and it was tearing them apart. That night, the power went out. Doors banged through the night. The stove clicked endlessly as if trying to ignite, but no flames came. Just the sound of chaos, echoing in pitch-black rooms. Susan was desperate. A friend suggested they offer a peace token to the spirit. Susan found a figurine of a cat, her favorite animal, and placed it on a table surrounded by candles. She asked aloud for peace, for harmony. Jamie and Marie sat beside her, skeptical but scared. Matt came home early and walked in on the makeshift ritual. He exploded with rage, calling it madness. Susan and the girls pleaded with him not to touch the figurine. He stormed to the deck and hurled it into the backyard. They all turned to look when a gasp escaped every throat. The figurine was back, sitting exactly where it had been before. Matt, defiant and trembling, smashed it on the floor. The air felt charged, furious. Susan knew, without question, that they had just made it worse. That night, Jamie crept to the kitchen for a snack. What she found stopped her cold. The word cat had been scrawled across every surface: walls, cabinets, refrigerator, over and over. She screamed for her mother. Matt accused her of faking it. But the fear in Jamie's voice, the trembling in her limbs, couldn't be faked. The house had once again been trashed beyond comprehension. Drawers overturned, food scattered, and then on the kitchen floor, they found it. A footprint far too large for any of them. The family stopped speaking. They moved silently through the house, shadows of themselves. Matt refused to admit something supernatural was occurring, yet he couldn't explain the things he had seen. Jamie and Marie withdrew completely, barely leaving their rooms. Susan stopped trying to hold things together. The house had won, and then Marie was left alone. It was only supposed to be a few hours. The sun had set when the television began turning off and on. Then it shut off for good. Marie reached for the remote. It flew across the room. Her body froze. Something was in the house. The rocking chair in front of her began to move back and forth. She could feel it watching her. Then one by one, every picture on the walls began to fall. Marie, in terror, grabbed her digital camera and snapped photos in every direction, praying it would catch whatever was tormenting her. Susan and Matt returned to find Marie shaking. She showed them the images. Floating in the air were glowing orbs of light, dozens of them, in strange, unnatural shapes. Finally, even Matt couldn't deny it. They contacted a church. A pastor came, prayed, and left, saying they couldn't help. The Thompsons were on their own. The final straw came when Jamie was left alone. In the quiet of her room, the pounding on her bedroom door started. Not knocks, pounding. She recorded it, her voice barely whispering through tears. When she approached the door, the pounding would stop. When she backed away, it returned, as if it knew. Then it escalated. Silverware and pots clattered on the hallway floor. Someone, or something, was trying to get in. Next to her room was the bathroom, missing a doorknob. Light flickered inside. Jamie suspected it was in there. Grabbing string from her desk, she tried to trap it by pulling the door shut. Resistance fought back. The string snapped. The door swung open, but before anything stepped out, her bedroom door slammed shut. Metal clanked. Utensils scraped. Smoke began to fill her room. Jamie opened the door. A toilet paper roll was on fire in a frying pan, more paper trailing down the hallway like a fuse. She smothered it. Panic turned to survival. She cleared the trail of fire and fled, past the chaos of paper-strewn rooms, into the street. There she waited, trembling on the front steps, for her mother to come home. When Susan arrived, she found Jamie crying, soot on her sweatshirt. Inside, the house looked like the set of an apocalypse. That was it. They couldn't stay, even if it meant financial ruin. The Thompsons fled. They left most of their belongings behind. Susan went bankrupt. They had no money, but they had each other. Within weeks, neighbors began to leave too. 5 houses on that street remained vacant. No one knows why, but Susan Lewis, Jamie Lewis, Matthew Thompson, and Marie Thompson have never experienced anything like it since. The Moreno Valley poltergeist was real, and it was caught on camera. What haunted the Moreno Valley house didn't just lurk in the shadows or play tricks from beyond. It orchestrated fear with precision, choosing moments that would fracture trust and test the human threshold for terror. What began with a peanut butter jar ended in fire and near madness, and even long after they fled, the family bore scars that no camera could ever truly capture. Once they were out of the house, there was no going back. Not emotionally, not financially. Susan Lewis lost everything she had worked for. She had once envisioned that house as a place to grow old in, a place where Jamie would graduate high school, where Sunday dinners would fill the kitchen with warmth. But those dreams had died somewhere between the microwave stuffed with plush toys and the moment she watched the word cat scrawled in handwriting no one could identify across her walls. Her bankruptcy wasn't just economic, it was spiritual. Her idea of reality had been repossessed along with her home. Jamie Lewis, still a teenager at the time, had trouble sleeping for years after. Every creak in a new home brought a rush of adrenaline. She didn't trust silence, didn't trust darkness. She had seen too much. On that night, the fire, the hallway, the locked doors, she truly believed she was going to die. That the thing in her house wanted to trap her, leave her nothing more than another tragic headline. And that fear hardwired itself into her nervous system. She wouldn't sleep without lights on for 3 years. Marie Thompson withdrew almost entirely after leaving the house. She no longer wanted to talk about what had happened. She deleted the photos from her digital camera, saying she wanted it all to be over. She stopped sleeping over at friends' houses. She asked to be homeschooled. And although Susan and Matt tried to make sense of how to move forward, Marie's silence hung in the air like smoke that never quite cleared. As for Matthew Thompson, the skeptic turned believer, the events in the house tore away something deeper: control. He had spent most of his life solving problems with logic, reason, force when necessary. He could fix leaky roofs, balance budgets, build fences. But in that house, he had faced something he could neither see nor stop. He had watched a cat figurine reappear from thin air. He had denied the impossible until the impossible nearly set his daughter's life on fire. And the guilt of not believing sooner, that was a ghost that followed him long after the poltergeist had let go. Their departure was hasty. They packed only what they could carry. The rest, furniture, heirlooms, clothes, was left behind. It felt like contamination, as if bringing those things with them might carry the haunting into their new lives. No one objected. They drove away in silence, and no one looked back. The house itself, it stood there for years like a wound the neighborhood couldn't heal. For sale signs came and went. Real estate agents showed it once, maybe twice, then vanished. The lights remained off. Weeds grew thick around the porch. 5 other homes within 3 blocks also went vacant. Families who'd lived there for decades left without explanation. Some say it was the economy. Others say it was something darker, something shared among them that no one dared speak of. Eventually, local kids began to tell stories. They said it was cursed, said people saw shadows moving in the windows, lights flickering at 3 a.m. A few brave teenagers tried to sneak in. One group swore they heard footsteps upstairs when no one else was in the house. Another ran screaming after they saw cats scratched into the wall beneath a layer of new paint. Whether those stories are true or not, the house gained a reputation, one that no realtor could scrub away with a fresh coat of beige. But the most terrifying part of this entire story isn't the poltergeist itself. It's that no one knows where it came from or why it chose that house. There were no Ouija boards, no seances, no whispered invitations to the spirit world. The Lewis Thompson family hadn't sought it. It came to them, or Maybe it was already there. Some paranormal experts who later reviewed the videos and photos theorized that the activity had the markings of a sentient haunting. Not a trapped spirit, not residual energy, but something intelligent, something that reacts, something that tests boundaries. When ignored, it escalated. When confronted, it retaliated. And when disrespected, as Matt Thompson did when he smashed the cat figurine, it turned violent. Others speculated that the poltergeist had attached itself to one of the girls, possibly Jamie or Marie, and that the house was merely a stage. That would explain the intensification of the activity during times of heightened emotion, arguments, fear, isolation. Poltergeist activity, they say, often feeds on energy. The more unstable the environment, the stronger it becomes. The Moreno Valley home may have simply amplified what was already brewing beneath the surface. Skeptics, of course, offered alternative explanations. They called it mass hysteria, said the girls had staged it for attention, that the parents fell victim to suggestion, that maybe someone in the family had a mental break and the others followed. But even they struggled to explain the photographs, the objects that moved on their own, the scorch marks, the patterns, the reappearing figurine. And no one has ever been able to explain how a house that cleanly ransacked itself, time and time again, left no fingerprints, no sign of break-in, and yet destroyed an entire family from within. To this day, Susan Lewis refuses to go anywhere near Moreno Valley. She says it still makes her nauseous to hear the name. Jamie went on to study psychology, trying to understand how trauma works, how fear can shape your perception of reality. She wrote about it in college, framing it not as a haunting, but as a case study in shared trauma. But late at night, she still wakes up sometimes with the sound of pounding on her bedroom door echoing in her mind. Marie became a writer, quiet, introspective. She's written short horror stories, all fiction, she claims. But in each one, there's a house with cans stacked on the stairs and something banging from the other side of the door. When asked in an interview whether any of her stories were based on true events, she just smiled and said, "Truth is a lot scarier than fiction." As for Matt, he returned to carpentry. He rebuilt homes for other people, never himself. When asked about the Moreno Valley incident by a local news outlet years later, he declined to comment. But one of his co-workers said he keeps a photo in his toolbox. It's old, faded, and tucked into the corner. It shows a blurry orb hovering in the middle of a living room. On the back, someone had written 2 words in pencil: "Never again." And maybe that's the final horror of the Moreno Valley poltergeist. Not the events themselves, but the silence afterward. No exorcism, no grand climax, just a family shattered, a neighborhood emptied, a house that nobody wants, standing like a secret that refuses to stay buried. Because what happened in that house wasn't a story, it was a warning. Do you think it was a sentient haunting? A poltergeist feeding on trauma? Or something else entirely? Drop your theories in the comments. And if this story shook you, if it made you question the creaks in your hallway or the cold spot in your room, subscribe. Because not every haunting ends with closure. Some end with silence and a door that still pounds in the night.